Once tariffs were announced, you had people who fell into two camps. You had one that said everything is terrible, the world is on fire, and this is absolutely going to crumble the United States. And then you had the other side of the aisle that said that the president and the United States was playing 3D chess. Now, to be honest with you, I'm somebody who's actually on the chess team, and the chess comparisons, they're annoying, okay? Because people who say this don't even play regular chess and cannot set up a chess board. But that aside, I'm someone who has a background in economics, and the question is really this: is there a real way that tariffs can actually work? I want to take the good faith arguments, the good ones, and use some fact-based analysis. Is there a way they can work? Yes or no? Let's go ahead and break it down. This is more of a discussion video. I want to work through all of those thoughts and take some of the comments that y'all have had, some of the stuff that I've read, and just say, this is what y'all are saying, and honestly put them out there and put some criticism to it, right? Put some thought to it, as opposed to other people just saying, well, no, that's not going to work, and not give any reason to it. Now, again, my background, my first degree was in economics, and I got a master's degree, so if I ain't qualified to do nothing else, it's about talking about economics, all right? So that is the way that I'm going to approach this. Now, it's a discussion video. I would love to hear your thoughts, but I'm going to tell you this. Okay, I'm going to tell you this. If I tell you 2 plus 2 is 4, and you disagree, that's on you, okay? That's on you. But number 2, if I tell you 2 plus 2 is 4, and you tell me that's leftist ideology, or that's MAGA or whatever, that doesn't make sense, and you need to take that up with your preacher, you can take it up with your therapist, or your doctor, or whoever. That doesn't make sense. All I'm telling you is based on facts and analysis and my expertise, all right? It don't have nothing to do with right and left. It's what do the facts say, and you can look at all other manner of videos that I've done. It's about what the facts say. I always let the facts tell me what to do with my money and everything else. That's what leads me. I tell y'all about y'all investments too, right? I let the facts and the analysis tell me what to do with my money. I don't let my emotions do that, all right? So that is how I'm looking at this. So the first argument has always been this: it is going to be short-term pain for long-term gain. Short-term pain for long-term gain. Now, interesting enough, at first, this wasn't going to be any pain. It wasn't going to cost anybody anything. I think we've all realized that, yes, it's going to be some pain, mostly because of the stock market. Now, at the time I'm recording this video, there is some deal between the US and the UK. I'm going to wait at least 48 hours. I said this on Instagram and YouTube Shorts earlier. I'm going to wait just a few days to see what those details are. I think a lot of people are just rushing out there saying stuff, and then we find out what the true deal is, assuming there is a real deal. The only reason I say that is because I like to see things on paper. I want to see y'all sign something that I can read and analyze, and then we can talk about it, okay? There's been a lot of stuff, Doge being one of them. They said they were going to cut $2 trillion of government spending, and then they brought that all the way down to, I think it was 150 billion. Y'all say stuff and y'all don't do stuff. I need to see y'all follow through. Okay, so quick time out. I know we've been talking a lot about investing today. However, if you don't know where to start or you haven't started yet, I have a free guide on how you can buy your first stock in just 20 minutes. To get that free guide, check out the link right here. All right, back to the video. I want to see that deal first. But anyway, they've been saying short-term pain for long-term gain. All right, so that's argument number 1. Let's see how that would work logically and through economic analysis. So if you were to do that, we know the short-term pain is higher cost. We're charging, that's what tariff is, right? Higher cost on the cost of stuff, and that's assuming we don't have any other deals across the board. Well, will the cost of stuff come down if we brought all manufacturing back in that scenario? If we brought all that back, is it actually going to cost less across the board? I don't think it would. And that's because, are you, regardless of what job you take, are you willing to take a pay cut? I think the median salary is somewhere around the $50,000 range, perhaps a bit more, perhaps a bit less. Are you willing to take a pay cut? If you're not willing to take a pay cut, then the cost of goods, that is all the stuff we manufacture, that's cars, iPhones, everything across the board, is by default going to cost more, because the people who manufacture this stuff, whether it's in Mexico, whether it's in China and elsewhere, they're not getting paid what you are getting paid. For example, an iPhone has been estimated to cost, it's already $1,000, which is far too much if you ask me. But if you bring it here and someone has to make it here, it's going to cost $3,500. That's not cheaper. That's going to hurt, okay? If you bring it back here, that's not a long-term gain. That's a short-term pain, yes, for an even longer-term pain. Because if you bring it here, who's going to buy a $3,500 phone? If you take some of the parts and manufacturing parts of like Ford and some of the other auto stuff that's been shipped off to Mexico, and you bring all of that back, that's great for a lot of parts of the U.S. I love that idea, yes. But does that make cars even more expensive than they already are now? And if so, who is going to buy those cars? Because now, if you're charging 145% tariff on China and that stays, and things are more expensive, which we're going to start to see at the end of this month and moving into June, and then the $65,000 car, the $75,000 car is even more expensive, who is going to buy those cars? And then you're also getting hit on the other side with 145% tariff from China for all the other stuff that you want to buy. Who's buying those things? Now the other side is, all right, well, what if we bring all that stuff back and then we automate everything instead? Wouldn't that keep costs down? That's a fair argument. That's a very, very fair argument. Because you could, let's say Nike shoes, a lot of that stuff is made in China and I think Indonesia and some of those other places. Cool. Bring that stuff back, have it automated. What is stopping that company, Nike or Ford, from just automating everything? And all the Detroit jobs and all the factory jobs are just automated and everybody gets fired. Then what? That would be a concern, because what is stopping any company? That's what companies do, right? They want to maximize the profit of all that stuff. So if I could have just automated all the jobs in Mexico and y'all doing very similar jobs, why don't I just automate them all and keep the profits to myself? Pay my CEO more, stock goes up more. Duh, right? That's why they do layoffs to begin with, is to increase profitability. So now, in real life, is AI and automation really going to get us all the way there yet? No. But this is the same thing we've been talking about with Uber and automated taxis, automated driving, automated truck driving services. That's the whole point. People have been worried about this stuff for a while. So if you bring that back here and we say, hey, $3,500 iPhones, no. But if we have a robot build all these things, we can bring the cost down so people can afford it, cool. But you brought it back here to give people more jobs, and you bring it back here and now the robot takes those jobs anyway, then what was it all for? Because now I have higher costs because I still have the tariff in place and then I don't have the jobs because everything is automated. Then what was it all for? We don't really get anywhere with that one. So my question is, long-term or short-term pain for long-term what? I'm not sure how that part would work. I'm just working through all those scenarios. So that's number one. Okay, that's just number one. That argument I don't truly understand from any side. It's either going to cost us way more, and who will be able to afford those items, or they bring it back here and automate it. And if they automate it, then who gets those jobs, and then who gets displaced or loses their job because of automation? Because again, who's going to afford those items that are 3 times or 3.5 times more expensive? All right, so then let's say that we move all of those jobs here, okay? Who's going to afford it, which is one question, right? That's number one. But also, who are we going to sell it to, all right? So, yes, let's say we build all that stuff here. Let's take out the who's going to afford it here. But it's still global, right? In the U.S., we have reached what we have called saturation for some items. There are some things like groceries you got to keep buying, right? That makes sense. But things like iPhones, even take something like Netflix. Like Netflix, if you look at their earnings, we are looking at international. How many new markets can you hit? Disney the other day says they're going to expand to the Middle East and build a Disney World out there. We are looking for how many other countries can you penetrate? How many other places in other countries can you get out there and sell to? Well, let's take a look at this. If you bring stuff back here and costs are going to rise, because again, you have U.S. labor now, right? Well, if we have tariffs and people have those reciprocal tariffs, assuming we don't pass any more deals, How are we going to sell our stuff outward to everybody else, especially if we are more hostile? That is going to be a concern, right? We slap 145% on somebody, and that is the second biggest or third biggest nation where they have a big population. Well, what are we going to do around that? So, for example, I write books, right? I can only sell but so many books to my family and my kids, right? So it's only 3 of them, and once they have a book, what they gonna do? But they're gonna keep buying the exact same book. So like the washer and dryer example that I brought up in last week's video, that's one reason why I don't think it makes sense to bring some manufacturing jobs here, even though I want us to manufacture stuff. I don't know if washing and dryers is one of them jobs you want to bring back. We got enough of them. We need to move that over and start building, I don't know, rocket ships or something else, right? So we're at a saturation point. It makes sense for us to kind of move up the chain of engineering and build newer things, right? Innovate to something different that everybody else is not building yet, if that makes sense. That makes the most sense for what we should be doing for the Rust Belt and all that, as opposed to bringing old things back. But that aside, that's not what we talked about today. But the main thing is, who are we selling it to? Because if they're slapping a tariff on us, other countries aren't going to want to buy our stuff. They're not going to want it. It's going to be 3.5 times more expensive, roughly, and it's going to hit a tariff on top of that, so it's going to make it extremely expensive to buy American goods. And you can't continue to sell stuff to us because it's already more expensive, perhaps, and then you're already going to have it, right? If we're manufacturing washers and dryers and cars, you already have a car. You don't need a third one or a fourth one. And is Mexico really going to buy it after that? After you have taken the factory back and then they put a tariff on it, are you really going to buy that more expensive car now? And can Mexico afford a $120,000 Ford F-150? Can India or China or the UK afford a $150,000 truck, or the EU or whatever? I'm not sure if that entirely makes sense. I'm not sure if that is a realistic scenario. Now, your argument could be, well, we can do all these trade deals and that's going to bring down the cost of all of that stuff and we can settle all that. Well, if you do have those trade deals, then it brings down the cost, yes, but then you also wouldn't, everybody would keep what they have and we wouldn't bring all those factories back. So there's that. You're like, hey, keep what you got, I'm gonna keep what I got, we're just gonna, trade a bit more, but everything stays the way it is. So that kind of keeps the status quo. So maybe they buy more of our stuff today, but it doesn't change the status quo exactly. It makes people richer, whoever is buying and selling, but it doesn't actually change the status quo for manufacturing. So that doesn't actually change anything on the ground. So we don't know who we would sell to if we bring that stuff back. And then if we did bring it back, who could afford it? And then you also have the issue of timing. It could cost, and everybody has said this before, up to 2 years. 2 years to get these factories online. And that's assuming nothing changes. That's assuming no other deals are struck. And that makes it very unpredictable for a lot of these companies to invest in, which is obviously more expensive. The other part of this is Elon Musk has already said that we don't have a lot of the talent to build some of the things that we are trying to build. Now, his product, electric cars, are a lot more complex than some of the other items that, toys and stuff that they may make in China. That makes sense, right? But we are already divesting in education. We're already taking apart pieces of the Department of Education. I'm not the biggest, rah-rah student loans person, obviously, but the fact is we do need well-trained engineers to make the next level of stuff, right? And as I've argued earlier, I don't think we need to bring back the old manufacturing jobs, but I do think we should be investing in the future of whatever that thing is. So if SpaceX is going to be the thing, if Origin Blue is going to be the thing, if electric vehicles is going to be the thing, I would prefer us to invest in college, invest in education, invest in trade jobs or whatever, and make that the manufacturing bed for the future, as opposed to bringing back old stuff and just replace it with whatever is new, versus like bringing back old. Because who's going to, again, if you already got a wash and dry, you're not buying one every year, right? You hit what's called saturation. The last part I'll say is this: can tariffs work in general? Yes. Can these tariffs work in the way they're implemented? I don't think they can. Tariffs can work if they are targeted. And here is why. We actually have proof that tariffs have worked in the past. And in the past, we're talking like what, 6 years or so ago. In the first Trump administration, he actually implemented some tariffs. I think they were on soybeans, but a few agricultural products against China. Now the people, those farmers were actually hurt, and there was hurt to a degree where the federal government had to step in and actually give them some financial aid to kind of help them out. So it was not everything was fine. Okay. However, it didn't make a ton of headlines. It didn't ruin the entire economy. And the average consumer was unaware of this entire thing. It was so good, in fact, except for those farmers, right? It was so good, in fact, that President Biden kept those tariffs in place. That is how okay these tariffs were. And they were very targeted for China, for those specific agricultural goods, and almost nothing else. We can do that. What the problem is for these specific tariffs is the fact that it is not just China, it's extremely high, and then it's everybody else, you get a 10 or 20% tariff across the board. For example, what did Switzerland do? There's an island with penguins. What did they do? Right? So it's kind of the blanket theory, right? It's you don't want to implement tariffs with a bat, you want to do it with a scalpel instead. That would make more sense. So if you want to do tariffs, yes, they can work, but it's how you implement them is the main thing. As they're implemented as of today, May 7th, this is sloppy. I don't think this is necessarily going to work. We'll see what today's tariff deal, if that is a real deal, and how it works. We'll see what that may or may not entail. But we have to be very, very careful with how this exact thing works. A lot of the arguments on how this is supposed to play out, logically, I just don't see how you're going to bring it over here and who is truly going to pay and afford those things and who you're going to sell those things to. Because not only are you realistically going to buy the same iPhone for $3,500, who in the world are you going to sell it to? If you want to know more about investing and how tariffs work and what stocks may work best in this tariff type of environment, you want to check out this video right here.